The steam curled from the mug like a warning no one heard. The operations center was alive with movement, screens blinking, boots echoing, the low hum of command routines. Then came the sound that broke it all, a sharp splash, followed by silence so deep it rang. Hot coffee ran down Lieutenant Commander Elena Morales' face, dripping onto her uniform. The room froze. No one dared breathe. Captain Ron Avery leaned back with that crooked grin he wore like a badge. "Guess you're finally awake now, Commander," he said, voice thick with mockery. A few nervous chuckles scattered, then died just as quickly. Even the smell of the burnt brew seemed to linger too long, mingling with shame. Elena didn't flinch. She just looked at him, steady, unreadable. And in that stillness, something shifted. The captain didn't see it, but the crew felt it, that quiet tension before a storm. What he didn't know was that Elena Morales wasn't just another officer trying to survive his arrogance. In 48 hours, the Admiral herself would step onto that deck, and she shared far more with Elena than anyone could have imagined. Before we go further, take a second. If stories like this grip you, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing this community grow across the world, each of us connected by these stories of strength, defiance, and the quiet power of those underestimated. Now, back to the moment everything began to change. Elena Morales wasn't born into noise or arrogance. She was born into order, the kind that comes from generations who've known the sea not as a symbol, but as a responsibility. Her father had stood on carrier decks long before dawn, watching the horizon as engines warmed and steel groaned. Her mother had read enemy transmissions in rooms where silence was survival. The Morales name carried weight in the Navy, but Elena never used it as a shield. She believed rank was something you earned every morning, not something engraved on a family plaque. While others chased the thrill of command, she chose logistics, the lifeblood that kept the fleet alive. She was the kind of officer who knew how many bolts held a radar mast steady, who tracked the fuel that made it to the next outpost, who made sure rations arrived before morale broke. It wasn't glamorous, and that's why she liked it. She didn't crave applause. She craved efficiency, structure, purpose. Her reward was the silence of systems running perfectly, the kind that said you did your job and no one had to notice. Captain Avery was the opposite. He thrived on noise, the clatter of authority, the echo of laughter at someone else's expense. To him, leadership was a stage. To Elena, it was stewardship. And that difference, invisible to most, was the gap that would eventually consume the room they both stood in. Elena never mentioned her lineage, but whispers followed her. Some said she had connections. Others said she didn't need them. What they all missed was that she didn't want power, just respect. The kind that isn't demanded, but quietly earned. The kind her parents had taught her mattered most when no one was watching. And that's why the coffee incident wasn't just an insult. It was a fracture, one that would soon reveal the depth of her bloodline, and the consequences of forgetting who you're truly standing in front of. The cabin light flickered softly, casting long shadows across the small desk where Elena sat. Her uniform still carried the faint brown stain near her collar, a mark she could have washed away hours ago, but didn't. It wasn't the coffee that burned, it was the silence afterward. The way no one had met her eyes. The way pity felt heavier than mockery. She sat with it now, the smell of bitter brew lingering, her reflection in the window steady but tired. Her hands trembled once, not from anger, but from control. Her father's voice echoed somewhere deep within her memory. Discipline isn't silence, it's control. He'd said it the night before she left for officer candidate school, standing at the pier where the sea swallowed the sun. Back then, it had sounded like wisdom. Tonight, it felt like a test. The screen before her blinked to life. The cursor waited at the top of an official incident report. She stared at it, the blinking line like a heartbeat. She could let it go, pretend it didn't happen. Everyone did that, eventually. But doing nothing meant letting arrogance become culture, and she'd seen enough of that to know it never stopped on its own. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Hartley, had warned her earlier. Don't, Elena. He's protected. The brass like him. He keeps numbers up, plays politics right. But she wasn't wired for politics. She was wired for precision, for codes, for doing things the right way, even when it came at a cost. So she began to type, her words stripped of emotion, her tone official, every detail exact. No adjectives, No commentary. Just facts, times, witnesses, behavior. The very absence of emotion made the report heavier, as if the truth didn't need anger to be powerful. When she hit submit, the confirmation tone sounded like a gunshot in the still room. She exhaled, finally, leaning back. There was no satisfaction, only the quiet certainty that she'd just lit a fuse in a room full of oxygen. She didn't know when, or how, the blast would come. Only that it would, because truth, once written, never really stays buried. 2 days later, the morning broke sharper than usual. The base was spotless, too spotless, the kind of order that reeked of panic. Polished floors, straightened uniforms, the faint scent of disinfectant mixed with tension. Whispers rippled through the halls like static. Inspection. High command's coming. No one knew who. No one ever did. Not until the convoy appeared on the horizon. When the black sedan stopped at the hangar gates, Captain Avery straightened his collar twice before stepping forward. His tone snapped crisp, his salute textbook perfect. The car door opened, and out stepped Fleet Admiral Sophia Morales, every inch of her radiating the quiet power that comes from decades of earned authority. Her gaze swept over the deck like radar, measuring, never revealing. Inspection, she replied simply, voice even. No need for ceremony. Behind her, Elena stood in the logistics line, clipboard in hand, posture immaculate. Not a flicker of recognition crossed her face. The Admiral didn't look her way, not yet. But for those who knew to watch, there was something in the air, a subtle gravitational pull between them. Avery shadowed the Admiral through every corridor, his tone overflowing with courtesy, trying to stay one step ahead of every question. We've been keeping operations at peak readiness, ma'am. Crew morale is. I'll see for myself, Sophia cut in, not unkindly. Just final. When they reached the logistics hub, Elena's domain, Sophia paused. Every chart was aligned, every manifest precise. Who oversees this division? She asked, her tone measured. Lieutenant Commander Morales, Avery replied, clearing his throat. Competent officer, if a bit, by the book. Sophia nodded once, her expression unreadable. By the book keeps ships floating, Captain. The line hung in the air. For a second, Avery thought he saw something behind her calm, a flicker of familiarity, maybe pride. But it passed too quickly to name. Elena's eyes never lifted. She took notes, reported figures, and stood aside as protocol demanded. But inside her chest, her pulse matched the hum of the fluorescent lights, steady, restrained, waiting. The Admiral's gaze lingered on her as she turned to leave. Maintain your standards, Commander, she said softly. Only Elena caught the weight beneath the words. The game had just shifted, and only one of them knew it. The office door closed with a soft click that felt louder than any shout. Captain Avery sat across from the Fleet Admiral, shoulders squared, eyes darting between the walls lined with commendations. The Admiral's expression was composed, unreadable, as she organized a few files on her desk. Outside, the murmur of the base continued, distant and muffled, like the sea against the hull of a ship. Captain Avery, she began, tone smooth, deliberate. We've received multiple notes about morale and conduct in your command. I'd like to hear your assessment. Avery leaned back slightly, exhaling through a half-smile meant to suggest confidence. Of course, ma'am. There was a small misunderstanding during morning drills, nothing serious. I like to keep the crew sharp, sometimes with a little humor. Builds resilience. The Admiral looked up slowly. Humor, she repeated. He nodded, missing the temperature drop in the room. Yes, Admiral. Lighthearted, you know? Keeps them on their toes. Sophia Morales opened a folder. Inside lay a printed report, concise, clinical, and damning. The typed words reflected in her glasses as she turned the page. Would this be your definition of humor? She asked quietly, sliding the file toward him. Avery's face tightened. He didn't need to read the header to know what it was. The signature at the bottom, Lieutenant Commander Elena Morales, sat there like a mirror. Do you know Lieutenant Commander Morales? She asked. Yes, Admiral, he said carefully. One of our logistics officers. Efficient. Precise. She's also my niece. The words landed like a command strike. Silence consumed the room. Avery's mouth opened, then closed again, every practiced defense evaporating. Sophia didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. If you had treated her with half the respect her rank and service deserve, you wouldn't be sitting here defending conduct unbecoming of an officer. Discipline isn't humiliation, Captain. It's leadership. Avery swallowed hard, the color draining from his face. Admiral, She cut him off with a simple motion. An investigation will begin immediately. You are relieved of command pending review. Her tone remained calm, precise, the same precision Elena lived by. As she signed the official order, Avery sat motionless, stripped of the comfort that arrogance once gave him. When she stood, the meeting was over. Dismissed, she said. By the end of the week, his name was removed from the roster, replaced quietly by another. No spectacle, no anger, just consequence, delivered with the same calm discipline he once mocked. The horizon glowed gold against the steel-gray sea as the first light of dawn touched the deck. Elena stood there alone, her new insignia catching the faint shimmer of morning. The salt wind brushed past her face, soft and steady. The same wind that had carried generations of her family before her. Around her, the base stirred to life, the rhythm of duty resuming. But for the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. Her promotion had come quietly, without ceremony or applause, just a line in the bulletin and a few firm handshakes. It wasn't her name that earned it, but her composure, her integrity when silence would have been easier. The kind of victory that leaves no scars, only calm. Later that evening, Admiral Morales found her by the pier. No ranks, no titles, just two sailors bound by something older than command. You didn't win because of me, she said softly. You won because you remembered who you are. Elena smiled, eyes fixed on the horizon. The sea didn't need to know what had happened. It only needed to keep moving. Some lessons don't need to be shouted. They just need to be lived.